This is Mikey Mason, and you're listening to Why We Game.
I'm Brodor, and this is Why We Game. My guests, plural this evening, are the BS of gaming in BS, Brett and Sean. Gentlemen, how are you?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
I am doing fantastic. We had some technical difficulties out of the gate, probably because I'm not particularly bright, but we're here. We're going. You two do a podcast called Gaming in BS, and you have 300 odd episodes in the proverbial can. Is that right?
Yeah. What do we got, Sean? I think we just did 338, 340s coming up. When we talk about technical difficulties, you should have been on last Monday's live. We had Sean and I have been, Sean has got all the technical end of it, but we had like, all right, we solved this problem. This is going to be great. And like one radio button was clicked and the whole thing just went to fucking hell. We fixed it. Sean fixed it. It was great, but so don't feel bad, man.
Yeah, and Sean, maybe you can help me out with this. Like, I literally don't understand what happened. I unplugged my headphones from one port. I put them in a different port, and then miraculously I could hear you guys.
Who knows? I tell my wife not to upset the technology gods, because then I have to come in and have an aura, my positive technology god, an aura, and then it just worked.
Well,
that's Minox.
Yeah.
That's Minox. That's Minox.
Could be Minox.
Chewing on a power cable
too. Yeah.
They're chewing on a power cable. What happened?
If you told me that I had to go to the market every week and buy a chicken and gut that chicken and spill its entrails on my table and arrange them in a specific pattern and my computer technology would work, dude, I'm in. I get it. I don't want to learn C+ or Java or whatever. You want me to kill an innocent animal and drain its blood, dude, I'm in.
I'm good at that, actually. Well, anyway.
No, I can tell. I was gonna ask, that I see the trophies on the walls. I was gonna ask you that you seem to be a firearms or at least hunting enthusiast, maybe bow.
Yep, I bow hunt and I gun hunt. Started gun hunting first, then I got into bow hunting pretty heavy a few years ago. Sean's gonna be like, oh Jesus, he's talking about that again. But yeah, I'm a hunter, fisherman, outdoorsy. I recently had my neck fused. Vertebrae 5 and 6, so it's kind of slowed me down. I can't do a whole hell of a lot, which is driving me bananas to put on like 5-6 pounds of just sitting on my fat ass weight. Because I can't lift anything, I can't do anything. It's driving me fucking bonkers. Hopefully I'll be done in time, so in August I can get my bow out, shoot like a madman, and get ready for September. So it should be good.
And Sean, you look like you probably engage in some, I don't know, it's hard to tell with the background there, but maybe with the goatee, some swashbuckling?
Yeah, some people might mistake me for a musketeer. I don't know what to tell you. I don't hunt or shoot guns or anything, but
he's got more pets. He's got more pets than I do.
I got more animals than Brett does.
A lot more animals than I do.
Yeah. Well,
multiple dogs and cats.
I am an animal guy. I have one dog, and he's a miserable cunt. He's obnoxious. Well, so he's a schnoodle, right? So he's a schnauzer poodle mix, and he's absolutely the worst of both breeds because he has all of the intellect and stubbornness of the schnauzer and all of the bitchy, prissy cunningness of the poodle, and he's the worst.
Oh, wow. I have a 70-pound boxer, and he's a lazy son of a bitch. Everyone's like, oh, boxers are super athletic, and Jack is like, I'm athletic for 2 seconds, and I'm done now. He's out. He just sleeps. And my wife's little dog, Rocky, I think he's a Shih Tzu Yorkie something, but he like hangs out, sniffs stuff, barks at you, wants to cuddle and sleep. That's it. So that's all I got.
So, Sean, how many animals do you have?
I'm down to our lowest in a little while. We got 2 cats and 2 dogs, and most of the and they're all, except for the little one, grossly overweight. My cats have clocked in about 29 pounds. So I got some chunky cats, and then my beagle he's got some health issues. We can't get him to lose weight. So I think he's got something going on. So we're trying to figure that out. His is not by choice. The cats are,
Cats are gluttons.
One of them
cats
named,
are fucking gluttons, dude.
Yeah, one of the names is Jumbo. I mean, come on.
Aptly named. I've met the cats. Aptly named.
Let's start with you two as a relationship, right? You two becoming friends. When did you guys meet?
Well, I put an ad in the paper and asked if somebody liked pina coladas.
Walking around, yeah.
And,
nothing like good old mutual infidelity to start the relationship,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, we figured. Yeah. Sean was already working in a company, and I joined there as a contractor. And then they wanted to convert me to an FTE because I'm amazing. Why wouldn't you? So Sean starts talking to me as a recruiter. He's like, "Hey, they want to hire you. You want to work for us? How do we do this?" In the process of talking, one of us offhandedly mentions, probably me, because Sean's really good at this, gets me to talk about shit. And then I mention gaming, D&D. He's like, "Oh, I do that too." And then after I start working at the company, because Sean, of course, closes the deal. He's a good deal closer. Gets me in. And then, like, "Hey, I work here. I'm going to lunch. You want to go hang out?" "Yeah, all right, sure. You're one of the few guys I know here, right?" So sit down and have lunch and start talking gaming. And next thing I know, he's like, "We should do a podcast." I'm like, "Oh, what's a podcast?"
Mike, like
Sean,
many,
Sean, do you want to tell it differently, Sean?
Like many relationships that start out, Brett has it close.
Yeah.
Close.
Sean keeps better track of us.
The fact that Brett and I worked at the same place, fact.
That is a fact.
The fact that I worked as a recruiter there and Brett was a contractor, fact. And that eventually I did make him an offer to become a full-time employee through some of the.
And I believe the offer was delivered to me with, "Look, you asshole, this is exactly what you wanted. If you don't take it, I'll never talk to you again."
Not quite sure.
I think that's kind of how it went. But it was an offer I couldn't refuse. But
getting to the gaming component was that there was a kind of a open workspace. It's
the atrium. The atrium was called. Yeah.
And I was sitting at a table and I had my own personal laptop with me. I think it was like around the lunch hour. And on my personal laptop, I had this just in from Gen Con big sticker on the cover.
Yep. I remember.
That I got from like backing Kickstarter for this just in from Gen Con, the return. And so like for kicking in the podcast to get it to succeed, they send you a sticker and I put it on my laptop. So Brett, we talked to business before. And so it was, "Hey, you want to take this offer?" "Well, I don't know. I got to talk it over. It's family and I'll let you know," and whatever. But in that, down the road, eventually he kind of came across me sitting in the atrium and he's like, "Oh, do you game?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a gamer." And he's like, "Oh, cool. Like D&D, tabletop." Yep. Then after that, he's like, "Oh, so do I. I'm a big gamer." And then we started having lunch hours together, like talking about gaming and what our game groups and what we were playing and some of the struggles that we found in gaming. And then I thought, somewhere in that conversation said, "You ever think about doing a podcast?" And then that's where the conversation spurred. I said, "Yeah, I did it like years ago. It didn't really go anywhere, but I've always been wanting to maybe kick one off again." That's how the podcast started going in a particular direction at that point.
I think if I remember right, Sean, this is pre-5e being a real big thing. I mean, 5e was kind of in talk at that point. It was like, "Hey, something's coming." And that's one of those pieces where when you're a gamer and you bump into a new gamer, you're like, I want to engage with this person because they're a gamer and I know him and no one else in this building that I know of shares this interest with me. So you say things like, "Oh, what do you think about that? You've heard about that 5e thing coming. What do you think about that?" That's kind of a starter topic for us at the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Just getting to know each other.
I remember that because I brought up, I think I had the PHB before Brett. So I was looking through it.
You did.
I said, "Hey, man, this might be worth checking out." And that's, so it was, I think it was probably Pathfinder days.
Yep.
That was big that we were playing. And that's how we got into that.
So time frame wise, then this is just a few years back where you guys started gaming together?
Oh, crying out loud. Let's see. We've been doing the show 6 years and I worked at that job. So this has got to be almost 8 years ago, Sean, because we knew each other for a while before we did it. It wasn't like, "Hey, I met you, we worked," and bam. It was probably a year and a half of just talking, getting to know each other, becoming friends, and like saying, "Hey, could you give me a ride? Hey, I could use this." Then you become friends, you hanging out a little bit. I was living way the hell out of Madison. He lives in Madison. And then we started talking about podcasting. And I think, Sean, it took us months to kind of hash out what we'd want to do. Because at the time, quite frankly, he's like podcasting, and I literally said, I don't know what the fuck that is. I know nothing about that.
You listened to him though, didn't you, at that time?
A couple, and then you gave me an assignment like, hey, if you think this is interesting, let's go talk about this. And I'm like, wow, what would we do? What would we talk about? Why would we do it? And because Sean had done it before and done a lot of research at least from my no research fucking perspective, it was like, hey, well, this is how you could build a show. It would have like an intro and a this and a that, and then these subjects and topics and blah, blah, blah. So we kind of mapped out everything from what we want it to be. And I think, Sean, if I remember right, we had the conversation of, is this us or do you do the personality thing, right? Do I want to be the angry gamer or the, somebody with a shock jock attitude? How do you want to do this type of thing? And I think part of what drew us to having more fun together with it, at least from my perspective, I think Sean would agree with me, is that this is just who we are. We're like, this is a conversation is what we have. Two guys, we're at the game store, you're at the convention, you're walking through the area, there's two guys sitting there having a beer and they're talking about something. You're standing in line, you hear them talking about something, you turn around and engage. That's Sean and I. We're there and, trying to just have a conversation about gaming in an open environment and, soliciting feedback from listeners to try to, through that method, kind of as we started to pull them into the conversation. Is that fair, Sean? Or am I?
Yeah, no, Brett hit it right on the head. Like, we wanted to show that any gamer would feel welcome to, if we were sitting at the bar talking about gaming, they would come up and join us in the conversation regardless. Mm-hmm. That's how we kind of facilitated the show. The second thing that I really wanted was, I'm a big community builder. I used to run a gaming website for Wisconsin for a while and met a lot of gamers through that, met some folks that had been on Fear the Boot at Gen Con one year and then, some of the accidental survivors and Rob Wakefield up there in Canada and a bunch of other guys and women that were in the podcasting sphere. And when I went, I was alone at Gen Con. And from that Gen Con, when I met a bunch of people that weren't my best friend that I went to Gen Con with, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to come back to Wisconsin and facilitate that same feeling with different gamers. Like, I want to meet more gamers and get to know them and just love on them. And so when we started the podcast, one of the things I wanted to do is incorporate a community of some kind and in order to do that, I thought a good way would be to have them right into the show and feature their stuff on the show. Happy Jacks has been doing it for years. Their show's based on 3-page emails that people write in.
Yes.
And, talk about their gaming experience, and then they banter around it, with Stu and Stork and those guys and Kimmy. But, us, it's similar, but it's a segment. It's usually about an episode that we did, and we never want to tout ourselves as the experts. And and another thing I didn't want to do is become academic. We didn't want to come across in a university atmosphere and I didn't want to agree with Brett either. Like, I don't want a guy who's like a yes man on our show. Like, I want Brett and I to he doesn't like certain games. I like them, or I don't, he doesn't.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. So I don't also want that. And some shows get like that, and that's okay. That's not what I wanted. And that's why we did the show. Like, this is the 3 things we want to cover.
I got to say, one of the things that I was most nervous about, well, 2 things I'm most nervous about. One, I had done theater in college. So I've been on stage, and I have done that, have people staring at you. I speak in public and so on. I do that for a living. I was a little nervous about speaking into a microphone, not knowing who's listening, because if you're on stage or whatever, you could feel the energy from the crowd, right? Or if you're giving a presentation at work or you're doing a big presentation, you can see who's paying a fucking attention and who's ignoring you. You can figure that stuff out. So that made me nervous. But the other piece that Sean brought up was, I want to build a community, and I'm like, I don't know anything about that. And his approach to that really kind of opened my eyes up. I've met a shit ton of really awesome gamers through Gaming and BS, right?
We wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here. I mean, seriously, I wouldn't be here, man. VC Young and Eileen Barnes and all these really great people, the folks from Gnome Stew, I've met a bunch of them. I would not have encountered these folks had Sean not been a big proponent of, look, we're not just going to get on the mics and talk. I want to interact with people. Building a community is a big deal. And Sean would say, I want the show to be successful. And for my project management days and now as an IT director, my question is why? What the fuck do you care? Well, what are we going to get out of that? And Sean's like, well, it's going to be fun. It's more fun to do this stuff. We want to have a cool place to hang out. I'm like, okay, cool. I buy that. I mean, we're not rolling around in Gaming BS dollars, right? We both have day jobs.
For the fortune.
It's not for the money. It's definitely not for the money. No fucking way. But it was kind of that mutual love of gaming, which sounds corny, but we both had a very similar approach. Like, I game like this. And Sean would be like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. That's cool that you do that, though. That's fucking cool you do that. Sean would tell me shit, and I'm like, that sounds terrible. But wow, you seem to be having a good time. Yeah, man, rock on with that,
How much gaming experience do you guys have with one another?
See, I have run, I've actually lost count of the number of times I've played with Sean, either him running, I running, played a little bit together as players. We've got a Blades in the Dark game coming up. Craig from Third Floor Games is going to run that for us. Third Floor Wars, excuse me. Got that coming up. But I've run World of Darkness intro Wraith game for him. We've run D&D together. We sat together through one of our, again, this really cool guy, Tim Duchesne. Met him through Sean because Sean knew all these people. And I met him. He's a great guy. He loved Astonishing Swordsman and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. I got into that because of another group of listeners that had written into us and said, oh my God, this is really cool. And Tim offered to run a game for us because I was bemoaning the fact that I'd yet to have a chance to play it. So Sean and I got a chance to play in that. Sean has ran me through Star Wars, the funky dice system, right? The Genesis stuff. If you listen to our episode on it, I'm like, that sounds stupid. This whole thing is dumb. I was not very nice. I was actually kind of a dick as a player too. Quite frankly, I've bemoaned that on the show. I think we've done a fair amount, not like nonstop. You've got your groups and I've got mine.
Be clear, Mike, we are not in each other's game groups. Like we aren't, so Brett has his game groups and I play with a bunch of other people. So when
I'm sorry, that was the impression that I was getting. So I just wanted to get some context. So please, Sean, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like Brett, there's a lot of podcasters out there that game with each other and that's their shtick. Like they'll game and then they talk about their games and whatever. Brett and I, when Brett talks about all the games we've played together, they're usually like, at a convention or
short games, one shots, short games.
Friend comes in from town. Hussey comes into town.
Joe Swick,
we get together. Brett runs, a 3-hour one shot. The longest I think we played together was when I kicked off Star Wars FFG. I ran an arc, few sessions, and then we were kind of at a point, and Brett's like, I'll run Trail of Cthulhu. I think that was like 3 sessions, but that was it. Like we don't game every week or every month. And we're in this big D&D campaign arc for months on end, or we're going through Rime of the Frostmaiden. Brett has his own group, and that's, I think, also contributes to the dynamic of ours because we could talk about each other's groups and what we're experiencing on a week or month-to-month basis. So that's always fun.
I think that is a strong part for us, at least the way our dynamic works is right where when he's got something going on, we had an episode a while back, a long time, I don't remember how fucking long ago it was, but anyways, me bitching about the fact that my crew pissed me off. I've known these guys for like 30 years. I've been gaming with them. And they pissed me off because at a Warhammer First Edition RPG was running, and one of the guys was just being an absolute douche. He was just being a fucking dick. And I had to call him up and like rage at him that I drive 3 hours one way, you asshole, and you're treating me like crap because you won't read the rules. It's too hard to understand. Fuck, man. So then he laid out what his problems were. I talked, we did the big grown up thing, hug it out. It's fine. We're cool. I've known this guy for 30 years, man. So it's not like we're not friends. So I would bring that up on the show. And then Sean would talk about like, hey, I wanted to run Ravenloft and I ran into some snags with this group. Let me tell you about the snags I ran into. The only thing that's kind of fun is I'll bring up something like, hey, I'm doing this. And Sean's like, ooh, that sounds cool. You know what else would be cool is, and Sean's bounced shit off of me too. It's like, hey, in my campaign, I'm thinking about this. Like, ooh, you know what you could do? And you give him a nugget, and he's like, ooh, I like that idea. And he runs away with it, comes back. Did you do the thing? Oh, I did the thing. It was really awesome. So I think that's fun.
It's a very cool dynamic for sure. And like you said, it provides a lot of opportunity for you guys to riff and to view one another's product right through a different lens. Do you find that your players listen to the show?
I have some that do periodically, not often.
That group doesn't really listen to us as far as
I'll get Nick will. I'll get called up by Nick every once in a while, and then Zave will say, "So, heard you didn't like what I did." I'm like, fuck, listen to that one. Every once in a while I will, but my buddy Lenny can't stand either Sean or my approach to gaming. He's like one of my best friends, and he's like, I just can't stand listening to you guys. I'm like, why is that? He goes, essentially podcast. I said, there you go. That's your problem. He's like, because I can't interact with you. And he's like, I've known you for so long, Brett. If I want to talk to you about gaming, I'll just call you. I'm like, yes, that's different, dude. I said, you have my personal cell. You call me. Lenny's his nickname. His real name is Aaron, and one of my kids is named after him. So I mean, it's not like he's a good friend. So I'm like, yeah, dude, we have a totally different relationship. I could understand where you don't want to listen to me going away with some other dude who you kind of sort of know. I get that. John's got people that listen though.
I think I've got a couple. It's funny. I play currently. I could probably say that I have 3 groups that I play with right now. One of them is made up of strictly fans of the show, like actually patrons of ours. So they all listen to us. When I stream, they're in the chat room. So
you can't shit on them.
I can't talk. Oh, I can't shit on them. Not that I would, because they're good.
I don't know
they're
about
good.
that.
They're good players.
The cool thing though is that group though. I mean, if you said, man, Harrigan did this thing, Brett, and we talked about it, we'd be like, huh, interesting. How would you react to that? We could have that conversation. I think Harrigan and that group of folks, they're good enough. And when I say good enough, I mean adult enough. Right. That we could talk about them on the show, and they would be like, oh, cool, they're talking about me. Well, let me tell you my perspective. And those folks would chip in with, what they thought type of thing.
But I can't talk about what I'm planning in the game.
Yeah,
I've literally told them out. I've literally told them, like, you can't listen to this episode because I'm giving away some of the stuff that's in the pots, and they won't. The other 2 groups are kind of home groups, like local. Like if it wasn't for, a pandemic, we'd be meeting face to face. One group, there is 0 people out of like 6 that listen to us. And then another group, a buddy of mine, I have a couple of friends like Brett that are 30, 40-year relationships. And one of those guys, my buddy Joe, might listen to us. He never sends us an email. He doesn't comment on the show. He'll buy some merchandise. And then he'll bring up maybe, like, we'll be gaming, and then he'll bring up something that was mentioned in the show. It'll surprise me because I just never remember that he may be actually listening. Yeah. There's a close friend of mine, talk about him on occasion. He's a riot, but sometimes he doesn't even know how to talk about him. Podcast isn't like, people listen to podcasts for a lot of different reasons. Your subject matter, the audio quality, the chemistry of what you got going on, and how kind of the flow. But those same reasons are the same reasons that people won't listen. Go jam on it, So like, my friends don't listen. I don't care. It's fine.
Tell you, man, one of the things that I find is funny is the guys I game with they won't listen to me, but they love the fact that I'm doing this because I know stuff they don't know, right? So we'll go to GameholeCon, we'll be sitting there talking, and John Kovalik will walk up and he'll talk to us because, well, he's a Wisconsinite. We're Wisconsin boys. He listened to one of our episodes, and he did something really nice and tweeted something about us once. Very kind of him. And everyone, you'll bump into people. And they're like, oh, you know that person? Oh, that's really cool. And I've actually had my friends like, hey, you kind of know this person. Could you go? I'm like, dude, just walk up and talk to him. What are you doing? It's Ed Greenwood. Just go talk. Yeah, but you interviewed him once. I said like 4 years ago. For Christ's sake, just go talk to the guy. But they like the fact that I am more plugged into what's going on. A lot of that has to do with because our listeners are coming at us with stuff. I've learned about so much crap. And again, my hat's off to Sean and building the community is because I've learned so much from the listeners. Because we don't want to, we're not perfect. We're not the experts at this. I'm like, I'm trying this. I think this is good. I think this is the right way to do it. Tell us what you think. And we've got some amazing feedback over the years. And some of that shit I bring right back to my table. And I'll be like, yeah, that's a really good idea. Where'd you get that from? Well, it's one of our listeners, whatever. And they kind of like the fact that I've got my hand in some kind of a pulse. They think that's neat.
Sean, let's jump back then in the time machine. When did you first get exposed?
To what, gaming? Or the podcast?
To gaming.
Just exposed
to Uncle Steve. No, when did you first get exposed to gaming?
I was a kid. I was younger. I think I was like 13. Couple of older. Always had kind of older friends. A year or 2 older, year to 3 years older. And I think there was some initiative in junior high to get some clubs together, like get kids interested in certain things.
And if I had to guess, this was year 13 in the 80s?
Yeah. Yep. In the 80s.
So you are like the ultimate age at the ultimate time for being a gamer.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I would say so. It was, looking back, I think it was, some would say, well, if you're a gamer from the 70s, that's where it started. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think you're right. The TSR, one of the things I did as a kid when I was 15, 16 was drive to Lake Geneva to look at TSR's building because I knew it was there. I had never been there. And it was like 3 a.m.
Hold on a second. Let's back up. You're in a car at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Probably 1 in the morning, maybe.
Okay, let's not get pedantic about the time. So you're alone in the wee hours of the morning in a car outside the TSR building. How many times did you masturbate?
I didn't. I was with a friend. I tend to do that alone.
No way.
I'm kind of a solo guy.
I'm telling you, I would have glazed a door hinge or something, man. There's no way.
Don't let him lie to you. It was back to back. You told the story. It was back to back. It's fine.
You think about it, and you're like, "Ooh, okay, that's where the things happen."
Yeah.
And then you go there at 2 a.m. My mom worked nights, so I kind of got away with a lot of shit when I was a kid. And a friend of mine had kind of the same situation. He had his license. Like, where do we want to drive? Let's go that way. He ended up in Lake Geneva. But when you're arriving in the middle of the night, it's dark. Office buildings.
They're not that impressive.
No, come on, man. It's so romantic. The idea that you and your buddy had nothing to do and you were like, let's drive. You drove to Lake Geneva. You went outside the TSR building and paid homage to the fact that that's where the goddamn magic happened. That's super fucking cool in my book, man. That's a story to be proud of. That's
after Dragonlance had been out and everything. And so, prior to that, that's how I got into it. It was the D&D club and just got into it in the summers and the weeks. I was telling Brett the other day, he was talking about running a game for his kids. And I'm like, what, on a Tuesday? And he's like, yeah. My mom was like, you can't play during the week. You got to do homework, and I was the kid that carried my PHB in my book bag. Like, I never would bring any textbooks home. It would drive my mother crazy, but I would have all these gaming books with me.
But you crushed at school, I assume, right? You got good grades?
I was average.
Shut up, fuck off. You're being humble.
No, I'm serious. I was total average guy. But I went to a few different schools, not to get into a long diatribe about my youth, my background and all that. But
some of them were handcuffed.
I went to
pretty dangerous school.
Yeah, I went to school in Milwaukee for just a brief period, and my cousin's my same age, so I was in her class. She had grown up in that school district, knew all the people, so I was the stranger in town and got to know some of her friends. And the one thing that had drove my aunt crazy, who oversaw me at the time, and even those students, is I could get away with kind of an average C grade, and I wouldn't have to study. So they were mad because they would study for 8 hours and they might get a B. And so there was, so when you go to my grades and my academic background, I was kind of average guy.
Because you were so smart, you recognized diminishing returns and decided that fucking off was better than getting a B.
Totally did. I totally did. Okay, I'm like, why are you going to waste all your time doing that bullshit when you're just going to go to the University of Wisconsin Whitewater?
So I am correct that you're intelligent. I'm just incorrect in how you prioritize your time. Got it. Brett, how did you start out gaming?
3rd grade, a buddy of mine had a birthday party, a little sleepover, so we all get together. We're all hanging out at Todd's house, and he convinces his older brother Terry to run some D&D for us. I had no fucking clue what this is. So he pulls out Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, players' handbooks and stuff. We make characters, and we sit down and we played. I don't know what the fuck weird-ass adventure Terry ran us through. It was the stupidest shit, probably. I was a paladin. I remember that. I remember thinking that a magic missile was like an ICBM. I had no clue what that meant. The terminology was lost on me. I had read The Hobbit at this point because my mother was big into Tolkien. She liked The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings and such. And after that, it was like, so what game was that, Todd? D&D, huh? Dungeons and Dragons. That's cool. So could you run that game? Could you play that game? I was just hooked. That was it. So from 3rd grade to now is I just did the math. It's 40 years. Sean gave me shit that he's like, well, did you ever have a break? Is it continuous? From that day on, it was like trying to find my next game. And this is the only hobby I've had that's longer than anything else. Everything else I've done has been secondary just from a duration in my time. It's been running a game. My home game group that I have now, the reason I'm the person who's been around for 30 years. A couple of the other guys have come and gone. Over time, they've moved or left or for various reasons. But I fought tooth and nail to keep them together. Hey, I'm coming back to Madison. I'm going to come back to town once a month. We're going to keep playing. We're going to do this. I never really turned down opportunities to run new games. for different groups and stuff when I could, especially through college. Did a lot of that. But yeah, basically I've been doing it since third grade, and it just hooked me because I just loved it so much. It was this wonderful escape. My grades were like slightly better than Sean's. Wasn't like really good. It wasn't a big thing either. I mean, went to college for a while, did that, but I was still. There were plenty of people who I remember buddies of mine in high school. Some of the guys I used to game with got into drinking, and that was their thing, right? So, we're gonna fucking hammer this weekend. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Schaefer's running a game. Cool. I'm gonna go to Eric's house. So the game group got smaller, but more focused. We were the guys who'd be like, okay, it's Friday after school. Boom, my Schaefer's house. He's running Forgotten Realms, or I'm running Dragonlance, or Middle Earth role playing, or Greyhawk, whatever the fuck we were doing. And we would go until we passed out, get up Saturday, go home, see your parents, let them know you're still alive, and then go back to somebody else's house for the Saturday event. And that was basically just a continuation of the same game. Sunday I couldn't do it. I had to get up, go to church as a kid, and then it was like school the next day, so you had to sleep at some point. You had to relax or, kind of get your shit together. But that's pretty much.
Sean, did you have binge weekends as well?
Yeah, we did. Especially when I was younger, probably from 13 to 15, summers, wake up. It was always trying to find a game master or DM. Like, who's going to DM this thing? I don't know. Let's go hunt him down. Go hunt down our DM because we want him to run a module for us or whatever. You
didn't just step up and do it yourself then?
Not at that point. I was too green. I thought, like, it was mystical. Didn't know how to. Too much to absorb. I didn't know what.
Have you ever tried to read the first edition AD&D player Dungeon Master's Guide?
For the love of no.
What the fuck is that thing?
No,
it's abysmal. First time I actually ran D&D for my friends, my high school friends, they were the worst pack of dicks I've ever played with. I tried to do stuff like, dude, that's not how that works. This is dumb. I can't believe you fucking did that. Oh, Jesus, Brett, this sucks. I'm like, oh, my God. So then I remember walking by Walden Books in the Wausau Center Mall. I see Middle Earth role-playing box set, Iron Crown Enterprises. I'm like, none of those motherfuckers know that system. And I like The Hobbit, so boom, I grabbed that fucker. And I can't be wrong now. Now they can't tell me how I'm doing it wrong. So fuck those guys. I'm running this thing.
You don't seem like somebody who tolerates a lot of bullshit, though, right? Like I
don't now.
I have a hard time believing that back then that you wouldn't tell those guys to just fuck off.
Back then, there was AJ and my youngest son. AJ and I were talking about this because he's a calm, gentle kid, and he was talking about something or other. And I said, I don't think you're going to understand this really, but I was exactly like you. He said, why? I said, well, something broke me. And he's like, oh, come on, Dad. I'm like, no, I'm kind of quasi-serious. But at a certain point back in the day, I was pretty, very shy, didn't want to talk to people type of thing. I got picked on a lot in school like a lot of people did. I can't put a finger on what happened when type of thing, but there's a certain, now at this point in my life, I could give a fuck. But if you grab 13-year-old me, no. Don't look girls in the eyes. Don't talk to jocks. Stay away over here. Just try to head down. Fucking don't get involved. Don't bother that thing. Just stay heads down, do your thing. It's not who I am now. Everybody changes.
Even as someone who had the confidence to be on stage and perform?
That was in college. That was a different thing.
I gotcha. Okay. So
college was cool. Like you leave high school and you're like, wow, none of you motherfuckers go where I'm going. Great. I can actually be me. And if you put a point on it, that would be the point where you'd say, hey, that's where Brett decided he's going to be who he is, and that's just how it is.
Did you have a similar experience, Sean? Or
I was the guy that mingled with everybody. So I never passed.
Yes, like my drug dealer, the social chameleon.
Yeah, but I just didn't deal drugs.
No, he actually was a black.
I did not start avidly abusing substances until college. I was a really, really good. I drank terribly between 11 and 13, but between 13 and 20 odd. But that's not anyway. Did you have that shift in confidence and presentation?
I don't know if I had as big a shift as Brett did. I definitely didn't start game mastering probably till later, just to kind of understand it. And then I had my buddy Jeff, who I still game with today. He was a very enthusiastic, positive, hey man, you're doing good. It's good. It's cool. You're doing all right. It wasn't like, holy shit, man, we got to get Sean out of that chair. Like I don't know what the hell he's doing. And so I never had that, but I also had a big break from gaming, kind of 10-year gap. So I left some would say I found girls and beer and all that stuff. And, I joined the military, and I remember guys in the military walking by on the sidewalk in Germany, and they were all going to play D&D. And I just kind of laughed. I'm like, people still play that game. That's crazy. And I remember I played that when I was 15, 16. At this point, I'm 20.
Were you a dick about it? Were you judgy, or were you just nostalgic?
I wasn't an open dick.
Now, Brett kind of reacted there. Brett, were you just being amused by what I was saying, or is Sean full of shit?
No, that's funny. I honestly can't see Sean ever being a judgy dick.
Okay, fair enough.
That's funny that you guys do that thing. That's weird, kids. They go back to drinking.
That was pretty much. That's how I see it. Yeah, that was pretty much the extent of it.
So
and I think even one of them.
When you were in Germany, were you paying for sex? Now you're talking.
There's lots of different ways to pay.
Now, I have given money to a prostitute. So I'm just I am aggressively pro-sex worker. And so I'm not judging. I'm just asking, while these guys were going off to play D&D, were you paying professionals?
I can say this. I had my own. So I had like my own girlfriends over there. Yeah, absolutely. And I have been to the red light districts over in Europe. I think everybody should probably check them out here.
I mean, I don't want to sound hyperbolic, but I think that they're doing good work. So any which way,
the Lord's work.
What did you? Well, now the thing is, it's weird. Like when you podcast, I wanted to say they're doing God's work, but then I thought, what if Brett or Sean are religious? What if that's the thing that sets them off? What's the thing that pisses people off? Like
the shirt says heathen. The shirt says heathen.
I can't read it, but I don't know how to navigate these waters, guys. I don't know what to do.
You're safe now.
So,
it's all good. You're in a good place.
All right, so you're in Germany. You're not gaming. You take a 10-year break. Were you in the service that entire time?
Not the full 10 years, but I had left. I mean, I bopped around a couple of schools. So there was times when if I went to another school, I didn't want to divulge I was playing D&D. I hung around with some pretty heavy jocks.
Right. What people have to understand, and I'm not trying to sound like an old geezer, but you're 50.
Yeah.
Like on the canoes?
Yeah.
Oh, right on. I hung a question mark there because I thought there was going to be a digit. Maybe that 0 was going to be a 1 or a 3 or something, but maybe I should just shut up.
Right on the goose egg.
So people have to understand that, when you're in it's, the 80s and you're gaming, it wasn't cool, right?
No.
I mean,
no, it was a weird, there were nerds and there were people that got picked on, and that was like free reign to get hammered on. One of the guys I used to play with in high school, Dietrich Borath, he was one of the best gamers that in high school. He would play a character to the hilt. He was amazing. He was so much fun to be with. He was popular, student council, sports, Jocko, the whole bit, everything. And one of the most fun things we would have is we'd see Dietz in the hallway. Hey, Dietz, you come on Saturday? Bring your character, man. And people would look and go, what's that about? Nothing. He just walked off. He didn't want anybody to know. And he would come on, they'd come Saturday. God damn it, Brett, you shouldn't do that. It wasn't, you can find people. I was never physically assaulted because of it, but you can find people, no bullshit, who had their ass beat or were pushed up against lockers, had, milk dumped on them, all sorts of stupid bully bullshit that because some dickhead found out you played D&D. It happened.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if people did that because you played Mario Kart.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So, Sean, you were saying so you weren't going to admit to people that you were into it because, as Brett was just illustrating for us, I mean, that was real life. People got bullied for that stuff.
Yeah, when I went to school in Milwaukee briefly, and I was hanging with my cousin and her friends, you feel them out, right? Who are these? How judgy are they, right? And how miserable is my life going to be in going in a particular direction, right? Because I had a good friend of mine who didn't drink, and then there was the drinking crowd, and then how would that dynamic play out? And so, we're going to go to a party, but I'm with a guy who doesn't drink. Should I drink or do I? I don't know what that looks like. So the D&D thing never came up in that school per se. And so there were guys and nerds that did it, I'm sure. I just didn't know them. I just weren't in those circles, and I was there for a very brief amount of time. And then I went to another high school, and it kind of rinse and repeat. So I mingled with a bunch of different people, but I didn't know a lot of different gamers. Like the game group and the gamers I knew back in the 80s, we didn't have the internet. The 80s and the game group I had were the guys that I grew up with in the town over. I could still see them. Like, hey, we're going to play this weekend. But even at that age, kind of drift. Like you go to a different school, you don't see each other ever again sometimes. And then I went into the military, and it was from there on, my books were in storage, and I hadn't seen anything for a long time. And then I think it's funny, the way I got back into it, a buddy of mine, so I've got like 3 friends of mine that were all veterans, and we all grew up gaming together, and all our mothers' names were Mary. And one of the guys I knew, no, isn't Mary? Well, no, one Protestant, 2 Catholic.
Because you look
recovering.
You look
recovering. Catholic.
You look French, and you sound like
an Irish name.
So you were saying how you got back into it.
My buddy was going back in the military. He was re-enlisting. And we got together to show him off. Like, hey. And in so doing, one of the guys we hadn't seen for a little while said, hey, you guys ever think of playing D&D again? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He's married. He's got 2 kids. He's on the verge of divorce. I don't know what the hell Sean's doing. We're never going to have time. He's got a job. Nobody's D&D. Who's playing D&D? D&D is still playing. And the guy that brought it up, Randy, has an older nephew. So Randy's like the youngest kid, and his oldest brother, sister had a kid. So the age gap wasn't huge. Like his cousin or his nephew was 19. He was maybe 30 at the time. Right. And so he was like, I've been running my nephew and his friends through D&D, and, you guys got to understand there's a new edition. What's this edition? Oh, it's 3.0, and they got rid of THACO. They got rid of -10 armor class. You roll high. There's a skill list. Like they just really revamped the whole entire game. It's a completely different experience. So we mulled it over, and we were like, okay, sure, we'll give it a shot. And he brought us into his group with his nephews. So we got like 4 30-something-year-olds and then the 19-year-olds. Well, that's a dynamic and a half. But ever since then, it's been nonstop. That's how I got back into it. And I find that, I was a technical recruiter for 12 years. IT people tend to have backgrounds and have probably come up through some of the gaming ranks. And I run into a lot of people. Brett's an example. That's how I met him. But I've run into managers, directors, CIOs, things like that have said, yeah, I used to game when I was a kid. You game? I'm like, oh yeah, man, I game. I not only game, I talk about it weekly on a podcast. Like, holy shit, you're into it. I'm like, yeah. Like, huh? I go, you should play. Oh no, I couldn't possibly play. It's been 20, 30 years. I'm like, yeah, kid. Yeah. Show them how to play. Like you had your probably older brother show you, or you got your friends did, but now you got kids. You could go out and buy it and show them how to play.
The guy who did my MRI, believe it or not, for my neck was one of those people. He saw I got a bunch of tattoos, and he saw my D20 tattoo on my left leg because I had shorts on. He's like, "Oh, you play D&D? Yeah. Oh, I used to do that." My kids are thinking about it. I'm like, dude, here's what you do. I give them a laundry list of tasks. I'm like, you buy this starter kit, you do this, get those kids playing and go. But it is amazing the number of people now our age or older that will come up and say, yeah, I used to do that when they find out we did. Boy, that was a lot of fun. Maybe I should. And I always encourage these old geezers to try it, go back and try it again. Men and women. I bumped into lots of different people, a lot of different roles and responsibilities within different corporate America. And they're like, yeah, I used to do that. Oh, I had a lot of fun. I played that once. That was fun. It's big. Go back and try it again. There's a lot of cool stuff out there.
I mean, that's excellent advice just in general. I mean, the game, especially with 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, it is extremely, extremely approachable and much more socially acceptable than it was when we were youngsters. Obviously, both of you have gravitated toward and back to the gaming or have never left the gaming hobby. What is it that scratches that itch for you? Because you talked about earlier in the interview that you two both have different styles for gaming. I assume that you have different game mastering styles. What kind of fun haver are you? What is it about the gaming that brings you back to it? Is it the creativity? Is it the number crunching? Is it cinematics? What is it for you that you're like, man, this is always going to be important to me, even if I'm not actively participating?
Some of it for me is that all of my best friends, including Sean, are people I've met through gaming. And if that's the connection that I have to keep me hooked to Sean and Lenny and Alpha and Beta and Zave and JR and that whole crew and Nick and the guys I'm gaming with, I'm going to keep that. because I love these guys. These guys are my friends. This is my family, right? I can hang out with these people anytime, anywhere. I moved out of Madison when I'm up north to help out my father because my mom has Alzheimer's and he's having a hard time. But if I come back to Madison, I'm like, man, I really need a hand. I really need blah, blah, blah. Sean lives in Madison. He's going to help me. He's my friend, right? Yeah, maybe he says. But so that's one thing, right? There's a connection there. The best friends in my entire life are people I've met through gaming, and I still talk to them. I mean, they're awesome people. The other piece, from a creative perspective, the raw creativity of it for me is important. If I don't have it, I start getting wonky. I need an outlet to be creative. I work at corporate America. I'm an infrastructure IT director. There's only so much creativity you can do within corporate American space. I like to write. I used to write poetry. I write gaming stuff. I love creating things. I love creating things and sharing them with my friends, and part of it is getting to be theatrical, to go to my very basic college foray into theater. My buddy Lenny actually majored in theater. Point is that
you're like redneck Bushido.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
It's fun to do this shit, man. I want to get out there and I want to put on a show. I want to have fun. I want to do something creative and share this amazing experience with my friends. And even at gaming conventions, when I'm running it, I'm like, I don't know anybody here at this table. This is going to be fun. We're going to have a good time together, and it's going to be a blast. And I like being able to walk away from this thing saying no one else, anywhere else on the planet, had this experience exactly as we had it. This is the only time I'll ever experience this thing, right? When I run something for my Streets of Avalon, I run a couple of adventures, did something at a gaming convention. Some of our podcast listeners are in there. We go through this thing, and I'm like, this game will never be run this way again. There's no fucking way. This is amazing. This was so much fun. All this wonderful creativity, pulling stuff out of people, watching them have fun, laugh, giggle, throw dice at each other. I don't know how much more fun I can have with my brain than role-playing games, honestly. No, I got this dopamine hit that just keeps smacking me. It's so much fun. And when I don't get it, I start jonesing bad. I got to play. John, your turn.
Yeah, I think it's a escape piece. I mean, you could go and do hobbies. You can get into sports. I got away from sports. And it's just more interesting to me to game because there's so many to choose from. So if you're like, kind of stuck on this fantasy thing, I'm going to try espionage. And so when you do that, you leave, I don't know, say ethereal, but you leave this world, but it's a way to escape. Like even other hobbies, you're still kind of here in some regard, but with, playing D&D or playing any game, insert RPG here, there's the collaboration component. There's the hanging out with your friends. Hopefully you're hanging out with your friends and playing with your friends. And sharing is that shared experience. And, much like the military, it's not for everybody. And when you experience it, you got to be there. You had to have been there. You could talk about it. You can explain it. People can relate to some of it and they might laugh about it. But in the end, you really had to be there. Like you just had to be there. Because it probably sounds silly or super serious. And somebody might think about it and go, well, okay, cool. But in the end, you had to be there.
It's like that in thing, Sean, right? Where if you go to see the newest Marvel movie or whatever it is, and you and your friends are talking about it, and Roder comes up and is like, so what are you guys talking about? Oh, we're talking about movie X. You're like, I haven't seen that yet. Oh, dude, you got to see that movie. And you know for a fact that you can't get in on this conversation, brother, because you haven't seen the fucking movie, man. You can't get in on Brett's home game story because you're not in Brett's home game. You just can't. Now, if you know about D&D or World of Darkness or Call of Cthulhu, you can say, oh, what are you doing? Going through Horror on the Orient Express. Oh, fuck. Okay, cool. What's your game master doing? What's happening? What's this?
How far along are you?
And then you're not in my group, man, but you're there in spirit, right? Because you understand the role-playing experience, and I'm talking to you about it. And then it's this wonderful family. I think family is a better word, honestly, where we all start talking. You go to a gaming convention, Jen Brinkman and I will be talking about something about DCC or some crazy-ass bullshit, and somebody will come up and say, oh, hey, that reminds me of, and we both stop and go, tell me your gaming story. We want to hear, bring it on. Tell me your DCC story, man. We want to hear this shit. That's awesome. I love that. I love that crap.
I concur. The camaraderie of it is a wonderful thing. I mean, you're a much more optimistic and genuine person than I am, though. As I'm much more in the Sean camp of the escapism and sort of the leaving this place and not being me, man. That's my absolute jam. So what's the stupidest fucking question an interviewer can ask you?
If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
That's a good one. That's a real piece of shit right there.
I had that asked of me in a job interview once. Excuse me.
I was like, I really kind of fucking tree that collects unemployment. I'm out of here.
Exactly. I'm the money tree. I'm the one that just sits there and just makes money, and I don't have to do anything but that.
What about you, Sean? What do you think is the dumbest question an interviewer can ask you?
I don't know. I've been in recruiting for so long. I think so many are completely ridiculous.
Sean, what is
unproductive?
Tell me about a time.
As a podcaster, Sean, what has surprised you the most?
I would say the impact two knuckleheads from the Midwest can have on a single person's life. I'm a big proponent of podcasting in general. I think it's a great medium for a lot of different reasons.
You're a doughy middle-aged cracker from the Midwest. Of course you love podcasting. You're like, I'm another white guy with important shit to say.
Yeah, I got important shit to say. But not even that. Like that, even outside of me. Seriously, like the medium, like somebody else could do whatever they want on a freaking audio show. If they get 50 people to listen to them weekly, it's crazy.
What Brett was talking about earlier, chasing the dragon of the endorphin hits of gaming and just getting that hit, man. I'm sure it's unhealthy, but every time I see those download numbers tick up, I just feel like I did good.
But what I was going to say is we've had people write into there's people that say, hey man, I really like your show. Like they'll give you the gas for your engine, but there's people that have written into our show that have said, hey man, I came on some really fucking hard times. My life turned into a complete fucking shit mess. You guys' show would come on, drop on Tuesday at noon, and I would download that thing and it would help me get through the rest of my week. I was like, that's crazy. Now, and I mean that crazy to me, like, and crazy in the, I can't believe that. It's so, I mean, I would never think that would be us talking about role-playing games and putting out a show that we would help somebody in that capacity kind of get through tough times. Like, yeah, if we're entertaining, we don't take ourselves too seriously. Christ, our fucking show's name is Gaming and BS. I mean, come on. And so when
I get it now, because you're Brett and you're...
Tell me.
Fuck me.
Please tell me that you are
God, that's so smart.
Are you?
You better be joking.
You better be making that.
We had somebody who it took him about 2 years. He went, "Oh my god, I just got it." I'm like,
"Fuck off! You're kidding! Come on, man! I was just doing a bit."
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Man,
we literally had one dude. We had a dude who's like, "Oh, I get it now."
I get it. Like 150 shows in, and he's like, "Oh, Brett and Sean BS." Oh, and we're like,
"Well, God bless you. Thanks for listening."
Exactly.
Right.
He probably dropped us after that. But I will second Sean's component there. Is all we're doing is talking about gaming. About, hey, someone asked, how do you do horror games seriously? How do you do humor? How do you do this? People ask us questions. We respond, talk to them. We've had some amazing responses back. Everything from, I think you're wrong. I still love you. And here's where you're wrong and where you could do better. Great. Thank you very much, listener. Love that, honestly. It's good to hear. All the way to, I've had, as Sean said, the shittiest time of my life. You pick this thing that could go wrong, and some of our listeners have said, that thing's gone wrong. However, I had a community I could lean on because I was moving. Something bad happened. This thing completely fell apart. But I knew that if I went to this community of people, I could talk about this thing and escape. For that moment, for that hour, whatever it was, I could just hang out with these two idiots and be part of that whole group. Because I could write into these two knuckleheads and say, they fucking read the email. They read the email. And they'd say, hey, good email. Thank you very much for writing in. And by God, that's a damn good point. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, whomever. Move on. It's interesting when you create something, how you can touch somebody's life in some way. And you could be as crass and raunchy as a bastard as you want to be. It's somebody somewhere listens to you and goes, wow, that really, I don't know, man, you make me laugh. And that's what they need. And that's really cool. I don't even, we didn't, Sean, unless I missed my guess, that's not what we started to do. Well, we're going to change lives. That's not what we went for. But it's, from a shocking perspective, the first time somebody said, you helped me. And not like, hey, you helped make my game better. You helped me, capital M, capital E, like survive this thing, become a better, do a thing. Fuck, wow. Holy shit, man. That's pretty heavy.
It was really heavy.
Very heavy.
Gentlemen, where do people find you?
Right here.
I don't know, Sean. Right here.
Right here. Right
here. Right here. This moment.
Exactly.
We're going to capture this digital moment. Now, if people want to listen to Gaming and BS, which I guess, I mean, I'm embarrassed that it took me forever to figure out that you're Brett and Sean of BS, but I'm kidding. No, in all seriousness, if people want to listen to the show, where do they find you?
They go to gamingandbs.com. They'll find all the avenues, but the flagship is the audio podcast. It's your podcaster of choice. Put that Gaming and BS in there, hit subscribe, and give us a shot. If you don't like us, it's okay. As long as you game, we're good.
Yeah, if you go to our website, you'll have our Discords there, our forums there. We try to put the show. Sean gets the shows put together. Try to put a little YouTube out there too. Just he and I sitting down, bullshitting back and forth. This background and Sean's background that you're seeing right now, like it's the same fucking background every week. It's just us talking, hanging out. I honestly think the coolest part about what we've got going right now is the community that Sean was big on building. That's the cool thing, right? The fact that we talk about cool stuff is fun. It's gaming. Gaming's great, but the community of gamers in there that are supportive of each other. We'll have tiffs every once in a while. I don't know if I agree with you. I don't know if I agree with you. And at the end of it, everyone in the community said, you know what? Game on, man. That's cool. Game on, girl. That's great. Keep rocking. You're doing fine. And I think the community is one of the things that brings, when people get into us and look at it, that's the thing that keeps them around.
Brett, Sean, thank you guys so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem, thanks, Mike, for having us. Really Thanks.
I can't believe you put up with us for, an hour? Yeah.
Why We Game is a production of the Influence Foundation. All rights reserved. Audio editing by Brodor. Music by Owen Godwin.